Alright guys, we should have done this earlier in the semester. What we're going to do is walk through creating a simple graphical user interface, but we're not going to code it by hand. Instead, we're going to use the Netbeans form editor to do that. So if you're using Eclipse or whatever, then you might want to go ahead and get Netbeans and try this out. Or if you just feel like watching the assignment and saying, I don't want to use Netbeans, so I didn't do it, that'd be okay. Just submit a note to that effect. But I think everybody is using Netbeans at this point. So here we go. What we're going to do is do new project, Java application, but tell it not to make a new class. We don't need a new class because we're going to insert a form instead. So get rid of create new main class. Otherwise you'll just have to go in and delete that or make some other changes. You'll have to select a different main class when you start running it and it doesn't do anything. Alright, once you get your project going, I'm going to rename it. My project is Simple GUI, Simple GUI, Graphical User Interface. Alright, so in the source packages, in the default package, I'm going to do new JFrame form. I could just leave the name of it new JFrame, but I'll give it a better name than that. I'm going to leave it new JFrame for now. We can always go back and rename it. Okay, and that brings us to a little form designer here. So we have these swing containers. This is using the Swing user interface library, and it's not the only one available to Java users. You have things like buttons and checkboxes and text fields and things like that. So what we're going to do, this is going to be a really rather simple one, is drag a label out there and double click on it to say integer 1. Something like that. And then grab another label and call it integer 2. Now we need some text fields underneath that. So we have two labels, but the labels are just for output only. I wish I could zoom in, guys, and let y'all see that, but I know you can't. But these are labels that I dragged out from Swing controls. And now I'm going to drag out text fields from Swing controls. So I'm going to select text field, pull it out there. And I'm just going to tuck that right underneath integer 1. And I'm going to drag another one out there and tuck it under integer 2. And let's give them some default values so that when the user runs the program, it's not filled. Well, here, I'll show you what it looks like. You can go ahead and run your application right dang now. Hammer and broom. Run it. It wants a main class. New JFrame is fine, so click OK. And there we go. See, we want these to be numbers, right? We don't want them to be text. So we're going to give them default values. The way you do that is you click on the field in question, and then under here in properties, you can find
the text.
You spotted it right there. Yeah, text. It's bolded. So let's actually put some text in there, like a 1. Now notice that shrinks the field when you do that, because the field is kind of auto-sizing there. And we don't really want that, because when we run it, then if we need to type in more than one number there, you can't see it all. So I'm going to stretch it back out. I just grabbed the little square around it, stretched it back out. I did start the recording, did I not? Yay, alrighty. I'm going to do the same thing for text field 2. I'm going to click on it, go under properties, find the text, give it another value, valid integer, 2. If you want tooltip text, which is text that appears when you hover your mouse over it, you can do this. Input a whole number, whatever. I'm going to stretch that field out too. Now we could make these larger text. We have the ability to control the appearance of these things. Notice that under properties we have the font, which can include the size. So I could make these labels larger, I can make these input fields larger. I may do that just because it's hard for y'all to read. Okay. There. I went over here, I clicked on the font in properties, and I changed the font size from 11 to 18. And I'm doing that for each property in turn, but I could also shift click each field in turn, shift click, and select a whole bunch of them and do that at the same time. Alright, I'm going to run it again. Hammer and root to build it, green arrow to run, and I have my two integers. Now for you C# people, this is going to seem real familiar. We're going to add a button and then create a method for that button. And the method will execute when the button is clicked. Let's drag a button out. Oh, by the way, if you right click on it, you can edit the text there as well, which is actually easier than coming over to properties, but I want you to get familiar with the properties. That's why I kind of got you to do that. But you can also do change variable name. Every control we plop out on the form is actually a variable. We can go out to the source code and see where that variable is created and where the default value is inserted. Just to make it real easy to spot, change integer 1's text. I'm just going to choose edit text to 123. Change integer 2's text to 456. And we're just going to make a silly application that, adds two values and multiplies two values, something like that. But let's go look at the source code. Notice that up here in this little toolbar for the form designer, we have source and we have history and we have design. History is kind of interesting, but anyways, design is the form designer, source is our source code. Go into source and do a control F and look for 1, 2, 3. And if you don't find it right away, it seemed to go somewhere weird when I first looked for it. There it is. You see something called JText field 1. That's our variable name. And we see that the tooltip text is being set to empty. When we did 456, we do have tooltip text. Well, what if I want to add some tooltip text right here? It's not going to let me do it. I can't change it here. When you're looking at the source, there are chunks that are grayed in a gray background. You cannot edit those, or at least you should not. If you open up an external text editor, yeah, you can go into it, but once you do that, you break the ability of the form designer to work with this file. So you can't, or at least should not, touch the stuff that's in gray. And when I mean stuff, touch it, you can't change it. You can click on it and stuff like that. So anyways, back to where we were. I'm going to do a control F, 456. That's where we set the text for the JText field 2. I can right click and do navigate, go to declaration, and it'll show me where my controls, my variables, are all defined inside the frame class. Now, the form designer is kind of odd. It sticks all the instance members of the frame class down here at the bottom rather than the top. But you can always get to them. If we want better names than JLabel1, JLabel2, JTextField1, JTextField2, it's not a bad idea to rename them. Give them better names. I think they're okay. And you'll notice that this is extending the JFrame class out of the Swing library. We have a constructor here that calls init components. So I'm going to right click on that and do navigate to declaration of init components. And here's what init components is doing, all of this stuff. You go, well, what if I wanted to add some stuff to the init? Well, you can do that. where, if you scroll down to main, you see what main is doing. You could pop open this stuff, you know, and see that it's doing some stuff that sets the appearance of it, but most importantly, it actually creates a thread, an event queue thread, which runs an instance of the JFrame. It creates a anonymous object and then sets it equal to true, and so the event queue runs it as soon as that's created. Kind of an odd way to handle it to our eyes, but since we haven't talked about threads. Alrighty, so I'm going to minimize all the gray code. It's a little too much to look at. You see here where it says new JFrame? I can stick my own code inside the constructor as well. I'd probably put it after init components, right? So if I want to change some values of the text, if I don't want it to say, you know, 1, 2, 3, if I want different values, I don't have to do that through the user interface. I could change that right here. I could do this dot jtextfield1 dot, and this is text. It's not actually a number. So set text parentheses. I'm going to give it a value of 1 again. All right, just to show that it works. So our constructor, when it runs, it initializes all of our components, and then we can put some custom stuff inside the constructor if we want to modify the values of the components. For example, if you're building a drop-down list, you may want to build the drop-down list yourself in the code. In fact, that's very likely. You know what a drop-down list is. It's a menu of choices. Okay, so I run it, and lo and behold, integer 1 is back to being 1. I'm not going to mess with setting it integer text to. Let's create our button. I'm going to go back to design, grab the button. It says J button 1. I'm going to grab another button, J button 2. I'm going to increase their font sizes as well. So I'm going to shift click both of those. Go over to properties, font, double click the dot dot dot, choose 18. There we go. So this one is going to be an add, and this one's going to be a multiply. So right click, edit the text. That's our add button. I could have changed it over here as well, right? Right click, edit the text, and make that the multiply. If you want to resize the buttons or move them somewhere else, you can do that. Maybe I'll drag them out to the side. Maybe we need a result area. So I stretched the frame out to give myself enough room for the result. I'm going to copy one of these text fields and then go and paste it. Nah, I'm not going to do that. But just know that you can, but then yeah, it gets a little bit finicky. Oh, why not? I'm going to right click on it, choose copy, and then I'm going to right click and choose paste, and it creates it right there on top of it, which is not too cool. It becomes a bit of a problem to grab and drag it over. You see it dragged the wrong one. I'm going to undo all that and just drag it by hand. I mean create a new one by hand. So I did a couple of undos. Not a text area. Text area is a place where you can create a scrolling area of text, like if you want to display a log of events. We want a text field, and we want a label. So I'm going to grab the text field and the label. The label, I'm going to change its text. Right click, edit text to result. The text field, I'm going to change it to a 0. I could just leave it blank, right, because we don't know what the answer is yet. But you know, at least that implies it's going to be a number. Eventually, we may make it so that they can't type in anything into this text field, right? We don't want them to be changing the result. but we'll just live with that for now. I'm going to resize it, and I'm going to choose both the result and the text field and go and change their font, just as I've changed every other font to 18. Alrighty. One more thing I want to do is, we'll do it later after we handle this. You know, these aren't all lined up properly, but you can always spend a lot of time tweaking your user interface. I think that's good enough. I'm going to stop messing with it. So, to create a method that matches, that is triggered when the add button is pressed, you double click on it. But I'm going to change the variable name. I'm going to right click, do change variable name, and instead of JButton1, I'm going to change this to JButton_add. Why did I leave the name of the control there, of the control type, the class type? Because that way when I'm typing in the code, I can just type this.jButton and I'll see a list of all the buttons I've created. So I'm going to do the same thing to the multiply button. I'm going to right click, change variable name. Right now it's set to JButton2, but I'm going to set it to JButton_multiply. Now, just like any other variable name, these don't really matter. They're to make the code easier to read. Okay, I'm going to double click on the add button now. And here's what I get. JButton add action performed. That means that the add button has been clicked to do. Add your handling code here. All I'm going to do now is print a message saying button clicked, right? Just to prove that it's working. Add button was clicked. Let's run it and make sure that works. So if I click multiply, it does absolutely nothing. We don't have a multiply method created, but we do have an add method created. If I click that, it says add button was clicked. Now, do you really want your graphical user interface sending things out to the console like that? Nah. So I'm going to remove that print statement, or I will eventually. So what does the add button need to do? It needs to extract those two values. I guess we didn't even have to specify that they were integers, but anyways. And then convert them to ints, and then do the multiplication, and then store the result as a string into our output, into our results. So I'm just going to make some comments. Extract I1 and I2 from the text fields. Convert to ints. Multiply them. Convert the result to a string. And set the text of the result control. Text control.
Yeah, isn't this the addition? Yeah.
So broadly speaking, right, there's more than 3 steps. There may be several sub-steps, but that'll work.
Isn't this our addition method?
Oh yeah, this is our add method. So instead of multiplying, so add the values. I didn't have to call them I1 and I2, but let's declare I1 and I2. Let's put this in a nice try block in case any of these parsings fail. We'll do that later. Okay. So we need to get the text from those strings. string S1, comma S2, and then S1 is equal to this dot J text field 1. We could give that a better name. Not J text field 1 all alone. J text field 1 dot get text. Parentheses and parentheses. Then do the string, same thing for S2. S2 is equal to this dot J text field 2 dot get text. So as we look at it, is J text field 1, J text field 2, are those good variable names? I could change them. I could refactor them right here. I'm going to leave them alone though. But I am going to change J text field 3 to something more representative of the term result. So we have some strings. I1 is equal to integer dot parse int S1. Do the same thing for I2. I2 is equal to integer dot parse int string 2. Let's declare our result. Int result is equal to I1 times I2. And now we need to, so we've done steps A, we've done steps B. We need to convert the result to a string.
You're going to add those.
I'm stuck on multiplying, aren't I? There we go. I1 plus I2. So string S result is equal to, we want to convert that to an integer. I'm going to do it in the easiest possible way. Empty string plus result. And now we need to set the text of that control. This dot J text field 3, that's our result field, dot set text, parentheses, S result. It'd be pretty easy to cordon off all of this stuff in a try block, and if some of it fails, then set an error into the S result code instead. And while we're here, let's pretend that we're going to add a scrolling text log of everything that's going on. We don't have it yet, but we can write the method for it. So add, or just how about log? Log a line of text. We're going to have to make our line of text S1 plus, we should use string.format. Why don't we make the string first?
Can't you just put S result in the log?
Well, we could, but I'd like for the whole thing to appear. 3 plus 4 equals. So,
Gotcha.
string S is equal to string.format %d plus %d result equals %d, maybe even %s. Yeah, let's do %s is the whole way. The text field for 1, the text field 2, and then the text field for the result. So %s plus %s, result equals %s, and we're going to pass in s1, comma s2, comma result. You can get the idea that the multiply button is just going to involve copying all that code and pasting it. But let's go ahead and invoke our non-existent log method.
Don't forget your slash n on that.
What have I done?
Your slash n.
The log function could take care of that. We'll make the log function handle the slash n, just like a print line does. Good point, though. Alrighty. So, void log, it's going to take a string. And that's enough for now. For now, let's just print it out. System.out.println. We'll do something better. We'll put it in a scrolling text field on our user interface. But for now, at least we can see that something happened. So you can add methods to your class pretty much anywhere. I'm just putting this here because we happen to invoke it here. Alrighty, so that's our add action performed function. If your button has if this method has a different name, don't change it. It's just because you didn't change the variable name in your form designer. Let's run it. Hammer and broom, green arrow, add. 1 plus 456 is in fact 457, and we should have printed something due to our log function. 1 plus 456 result equals 457. Let's go ahead and add the exception handling here. I think that could start here, but we're going to need our S result defined earlier, really. So move the creation of S result up to here. String S result. That way the variable's available to us when we call log. So we have, of course, this error now that the variable has been twice declared. There. So did you see what I did? I added that variable declaration and I removed the word string from that. So let's put this in a try block. Above, S1 is equal to this, whatever. Try. And then comment everything all the way down to S result equals quote plus result. Just comment all, I mean not comment, tab all of that stuff over. We still want to set the result. Ooh, I see an error. I don't even see how that worked. I guess %s was converted to string, result was converted to string on the fly. This should be S result. Should it not? Yes.
In this font, does the word result look like it's spelled wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bugging me so bad.
What's that?
The word result in our font makes it just looks weird. It doesn't look like it's spelled right.
If you
okay.
wanted to keep a result there, you need to move result to the top. Define end result at the top.
No, I really want result to be a string and not a number here, because I want to be able to put that the result was an error. So let's go ahead and do catch, and we're going to be totally cheesy and just do exception EX. Oh, we could do the parse error. We could do the number format exception, except I don't remember what it is. I guess we'll find out real soon. Why don't I run this? Pardon me?
I think it's number format exception.
Okay, yeah, so catch number format exception EX. And in this case, S result is going to be error. We're not going to tell them why. We're just going to say error, or format error, or number error, or bad input, or error colon bad input. How about that? Since we're not doing divide by 0, that should be the only kind of exception we should have to catch.
Error called I do not like the code here. It's like error bad input. I do not like the
Okay, and this is complaining that S1 and S2 have not been declared. And that is true because we Well, they've been declared, but they have not been initialized. We could just give them empty values of strings, or we can pull those two statements and put them above the try. Let's do that. I'm going to cut S1 equals this and S2 is equal to this. Cut those and paste them above the try. All right, it looks like no errors. Looks like it'll compile again. Can't quite get it all on the same page for y'all. I could put S result in the same thing. You don't have to make that change. That didn't help much, did it? Close though. We got the whole thing except for the log call, where we build the string and log. All right.
P plus 456 equals bad input. It still logs it. Oh, should we put the log call in the try block?
No. I like logging that there was an error.
Okay.
So, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to put some words, no and way. You try to add them, and in our log, it says no plus way result is equal to error bad input. All right. I'm interested in getting the scrolling log to work, but let's go ahead and implement the multiply button. What are we going to have to do? We're going to have to make the method for it. We're going to copy all of this text, and we're going to change that to a multiply, and we're going to change that to a multiply, right? And then we could even do divide, you know, and subtraction if we wanted to. So I'm going to go back to the designer, double click on the multiply field. Oh, I want to show you one more thing. Highlight field, and then where you see properties, binding, events, and code, click on events. I know this text is way too tiny to see on the screen, but it says action performed, and it's got a method name there. If you didn't want it to call that method name anymore, you could just, you know, blank zero it out, and it would say none. Or if you write a method and then later on you want to hook it up to an event, you could do that. Every time you interact with one of these methods, one of these controls, an event handler is added. I did not mean to do that. So even if you can make mistakes really easily. Like what if you double clicked on this thing that said integer 1? Well, it went into a text mode, editing mode. But what if you double clicked onto this 1231? Whoops, it creates an event handler.
I did that already.
Yeah, you may not want that, but can you delete it? No, it's in gray. So you go back to your design, you click on the control, you click on events, and where it says action performed, you just zero it out, and now it's not going to call that event anymore. And you could go and delete that event, that handler, from your source code. Now it's no longer in gray. I could get rid of it if I went down and found it.
Or you could edit it and then bring it back.
Yeah, we could edit it, change it, and then revive it. Okay, so I'm going to double click on multiply, create that method.
Wait, how did you delete the method? Sorry,
I didn't actually delete the method yet. I just removed the reference for it. If we looked for it, JText field 1 action, where was that? JText field 1. Oh, maybe it deleted it when we removed the reference. That's kind of hardcore. But yeah, I believe it did. It removed the method automatically as soon as we removed the reference to it.
And how exactly, you were in design, you went to action perform?
Right, I'll repeat the steps to create it.
I see.
Okay, you figured that out. Yeah, I accidentally created it by double clicking on the input field, and it says JText field action performed. We don't want that to happen, so I'm going to go back to the designer. I'm going to click on that input field. I'm going to go to under events where it says action performed. I'm going to just backspace over it all. Alright, so double click on the multiply button, go into the handler for it. I'm just going to copy the whole thing. except it's not going to say add button was clicked. Do we even need that anymore? It's kind of a debug message. I'm going to remove that. I don't want to see add button was clicked.
I hate how it runs down here and not on the actual.
So I'm going to highlight all of this stuff, and then I'm just going to make the few changes required. Everything from there to log.
Well, if you're logging it, aren't you going to like store that in like a text file or something? If you're just logging it for errors or something.
There.
And then for here,
I don't like the console either.
I'd rather put it in the thing itself.
yeah, you really don't want to be throwing things into the console output. Right, exactly. So we're going to change our log function to write to a field on screen, and you could also write a text file, you know, containing log.
That's what the text area is going to be for.
Yeah. So here we go. Add your handling code here. I'm going to paste that, but since this is the multiply action, I'm just going to change a few things. My comments are not going to be add the values. They're going to be multiply, like I wanted to do at the first. All right, there we go. Scroll down here, and after we parse the images, after we parse the integers, we multiply them. And then in our logging, we change that. Now, as you're looking at this, and if you think about implementing a divide and a subtract and maybe an exponent, you realize we sure are cutting and pasting a lot of code. And so you might think of a way to modularize this, maybe with a single function that had a switch statement that controlled what the operation was going to be. But we're not going to mess with that. Okay, I believe just by changing in my multiply action performed, changing the word multiplying the comments, changing the line int result is equal to I1 times I2, and changing my log string to IS multiplied by IS, I think I'm good to go. I need to kill my app. Click to cancel process. Run it. There we go. Multiply, yay. Add, yay.
Wait, so if you did a switch statement, would that switch statement just do it on one button click based on what, or?
You would, yeah, if we wanted to do it as a switch statement, what we would do is we'd still have handlers for multiply and add, but then they would both call a common method with something that would, tell it which operation it was doing. We ought to do that, but we're not gonna. Okay, what else would make this useful? What if, after we clicked add, we wanted the result to be copied back into I? That is incredibly easy to do. Let's go ahead and do that. The other nice thing would be, maybe it'd be nice if, maybe we'll do a second user interface that does some more of these tricks. Let's just go ahead and make the scrolling log and call this one done. But I think that we need to revisit this idea in a second lecture this week, because we're not throwing in radio buttons or check boxes or pull down menus, and all of that stuff is good to go, is good stuff too. All right, I'm going to close my app. We want a scrolling text log. I'm going to go to design. I'm going to grab the text area. Oh, by the way, if I click the green button and I come over here, I can change the result. That's kind of a user interface quirk that I don't really like. I might want to fix that at a certain point. And you can do that. Let's see if there's an easy way to do that. I'm going to click on result and scroll down the properties. I have to click back on properties here and see if I see something that could make it read only. There's probably one called disabled. Yeah, there's disabled text color. We might want to make, well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. See where it says enabled? Enabled doesn't mean that it's hidden, or disabled doesn't mean that it's hidden. It just means it's grayed out. So go to properties, scroll down until you see the enabled checkbox. Deselect that and then build and run it again, and you'll see what I mean. It's grayed out. Meh. At least it stops us from typing it, but we'd really like for it to be black. So I'm going to come back up here, and where it says disable text color, I'm going to click on the little 3 buttons there and change the text color to black. Hey, wouldn't it be neat if it turned red if it was an error? But nah. Okay. We could do that. We could set the disable text color based on whether it worked or not. All right, now it's almost perfect as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I would like for that to be white, but then that would perhaps frustrate the user by clicking in it, trying to change it. So I'm okay with it being this pale gray color when it's disabled. All right, scrolling text field now. Text area. Drag that out. And look at all the cool stuff you can add. Progress bar. A password field, which zeroes out as you type things in it. I mean, just puts dots rather than the text. You can put things inside a panel so that, hey, let's do that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to drag a panel out onto the screen. And I'm going to cut all of these. I shouldn't be doing this. Now I can't see my panel. I'm going to change the background of my panel to something slightly different. Or maybe I'll just put a border around it. So I selected my panel that I just dragged out there. And what kind of border do I want on it? A beveled border, a compound border, an empty, an etched, a line. How about beveled? Click OK. Now I really want all of these things in it. So I'm going to shift click and try to select every one of these things. Right click, cut them, come over here into the panel, and I hope I don't do something disastrous, and paste. And now, we have a whole group of controls that we can move around as one entity, which is kind of nice. All right, our output log. Grab text area. Drag it out here. I wanted to change the name of this control to something better than text field 3. So while I'm here, I'm going to right click on the third text field and do change variable name to jtext_result. Again, do the names matter? Only to the person reading the code, but the programmers read the code, so it does matter to us. Okay. So this is our log. Let's give it a good variable name. Right click, change variable name, jtextarea1. How about jtext_log? So what is a log function going to do? It's going to read in the entire scrolling text log. It's going to append our new piece of text to it, and then it's going to reset it. That's really about the easiest way that I can think of to do this. So we're going to read this in to a string variable. We're going to append our new log line to it, and then we're going to set the text. So we're going to use a get text. We're going to, add to that text, add to that string, and then we're going to do a set text. We could put a label out here saying what this was, right? So label, drag out here, right click, edit text, results log, change that to 18 points. Now we don't want to double click on this guy because that would just create a method that we'd have to go and delete. Let's go and find that log function inside of our source code. So go back to source, find my log. You could just do Control F or whatever. Here it is. So what is the log function going to do? Well, it's not going to print out anything anymore. We're going to get text from the log field, append our new string to it, and then set text to log field. So string s is equal to this dot jtext log, jtext underscore log, if you change the name of it. Otherwise, it'll say text area, dot get text, parentheses in parentheses. And he's complaining about something. What is he complaining about? Variable s is already defined. Yeah, what do you know it is? Okay. How about log text then? We could also give this a better name, right? So instead of just string s, let's call this add text. So I just changed my log to say string add text, and here I'm going to say string log. That's good enough. And then slog plus equals, not slog, log plus equals a character turn plus the text that we want to add to it. And now let's set the text of jtext log. And do you have to use this? We could just type jtext underscore log without this, right? But it sure is easy to be able to type this dot and then pick from a series of things. So this dot jtext underscore log dot set text to our log. I wonder if that'll work. Let's give it a shot. Hey, check it out. Our code was actually shorter than our comments. That's all right. I'm going to completely delete the print line comment. Hammer and broom. Run it. Multiply. Now put a blank line up at the top. Maybe I'm not digging that. Maybe I should put the slash in at the end of the text, you know, each time that I add it. But let's try a few more. Hey, and check it out. As we added them, it creates this
gigantic scroll thingy.
Yeah. That's an interesting looking scroll bar, isn't it? You can change the appearance of the user interface. I'm going to show you where. If you go to Control F, and look for the word Nimbus, you'll see that it says Set Nimbus Look and Feel. And there it does j.swing.uimanager.setText look and feel info.className. I'm going to just comment that out. I just want to see what it looks like without a look and feel. Oh, no, this is going to be too many problems. Anyways, you can find other look and feels. Here's what it's doing. It's calling java.swing.uimanager.get installed look and feels. I'm going to comment the whole thing out. But the Nimbus look and feel actually looks great. So you don't have to do this. In fact, I recommend don't doing it. I just want to see what it looks like, okay? There, I commented out everything about the look and feel. So
Whoa.
then when I run it, does it look tacky? Let's find out.
No, it's cool.
It looks pretty good. I like it without the Nimbus look and feel. Kind of like it better. You know, that scrolly text, you know, thumbnail was kind of ostentatious. So yeah, if you want to where it says set the Nimbus look and feel, you can comment out the whole section. You could even delete it all. The whole try catch series of blocks.
One more time. I keep accidentally creating methods on my fields.
Yep, and anytime you're clicking around in your form designer, you're liable to accidentally make methods, but you know how to clean them. And you know, they don't really hurt anything, they just clutter up the code. All right, I think that's about enough for this lesson. I'm going to run it once more just to marvel at my design. Want the text field to be bigger? We could do that. You wanted a button that would save the result log to a file? That'd be pretty cool. I ought to make y'all do that. That ought to be homework, but I really have enough homework assignments for this semester, I think.
You might come looking up my code of an error. I'm not quite sure what I did.
All right, I need to pause, go back and look. Oh yeah, 2 more changes we want to make. One is to not allow them to clear out the results. So we should make that read-only as well, disabled as well. And I had another change I wanted. Oh yeah, not make it to where it had a blank line, right? So let's go fix those 2 things as well. Go back to our log function. And instead of \n plus add text, let's do log is equal to add text plus \n. And then we're going to come back to the form and we're going to disable that log so that it can't be changed.
There's a, at the top, there's one that says editable.
Oh, there's one called editable. That's a better way than disabled, isn't it?
Editable.
So, yeah, the very top option is editable. So I clicked on the form, top option in properties was editable. Now when I run it, good spot. I can't change that. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to make an extra credit portion of this if you want. If you want, go and add a save button that when they click it, it'll save it to a file called log.txt. Everything in the log field. Actually shouldn't be too hard, hopefully. If you feel like it, great. You'll get some good extra credit. I'll make a extra credit Dropbox for it. And hope you found this educational. We should probably revisit this topic, but there's a couple other things I want to hit before the semester's done too, so we'll have to see how we can fit it all in.